We were just talking about those. I thought maybe everyone's gonna start crying this peak. Mm-hmm.
You're smart. Yeah, I don't do very well. Thank you. You drawing a line?
Yes, I have to, because if I don't, then.
You don't. That's okay.
Yeah.
Is it hot in here?
Oh, I just thought I'd get some more air.
Okay. Oh.
It's gorgeous outside.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you kind of.
Okay. You know what?
I just have to go back and get my file.
I heard you say something. Maybe you did. All right, I'm gonna go get my water and.
I know. But it's yeah. So true.
I know, yeah.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we're babysitter who's been with us because of her COVID. You know. But it's yeah.
Oh, good. No, I had last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh,
Does he go in? Yeah.
so I have to check and see. He's fair. Child.
Tomorrow, yeah, tomorrow I'm free. So I have one more day on the rest.
Is it? I think so. Sure.
This is just, oh. That's interesting. Hey, Robin.
Pick us up.
Yeah, we sound like a robot. Let me get out of here. Let's see. And I will change the view. Okay, people are coming in. Let's see. So, no, is that what I want? All right, Madam Chair, so we are live.
And they recorded?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the school committee meeting on May 24th at 7:04 p.m. But before we begin, I'd like to ask that we take a moment of silence as we mourn and think of the children, teachers, and families that are impacted by the horrific tragedy of Robb Elementary School today. If we can all rise.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to take a motion for the approval of the minutes dated May 10th, 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 10th, 2022, regular meeting.
Would anyone like to second the motion?
I'll second the motion. Understand.
All in favor? Aye. Number 3 on the list is the acknowledgement of visitors.
Okay, well, Madam Chair, I'd like to let you know that tonight, Robin Howard is remote with us. And Nancy Catiano is remote with us. And there are no other guests in the room.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Yay. Has anyone received any correspondence or community input? I have not. And I have not. We have already examined and authorized the payment of bills. So we can move on to the superintendent's report.
Madam Chair, we need a motion.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You have done such a wonderful job of reviewing them all.
It's just very nice.
I'm so sorry. I'd like to take a motion, please. For
Madam
the-
Chair, the amount of the total, which you have done a wonderful job of previewing, is $70,034.93.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the invoices at the school committee meeting tonight for the total of $70,034.93.
Would anyone like to second that? No, I'll second the motion. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. My apologies. It's the accountant and finance person in me. I'm just like, okay, moving on. Next on the list is the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The first item on the agenda is the COVID-19 update. I have forwarded that document to you this afternoon late. It's in color, it's also in your packet, black and white. A little bit more information than we usually have. This gives you a list week by week. We also have on this one the number of influenza cases that we've had since January. and the total by month of COVID cases. I met with the school nurse and the public health nurse today. There are 49 cases in May in the town of Nahant total. There are 10 active cases, 3 new ones on Sunday, 3 new ones today in Nahant, for a total of 10 active. The good news is that there is no one in the hospital from Nahant. We have had residents return to our community who are 97 years old, 100 years old, and 102 years old. Kind of gives you an idea of a combination of treatments that are much better than they have been in the past, and also the strain strength at this time. So it's kind of a combination. I mean, way back when we were talking about the first strain, individuals of that age were in great difficulty. So it's a good thing. Bad thing we have so many cases. Let's talk about Johnson School. We have 2 active cases, 1 student and 1 staff member, and the staff members' attendance at school has been slowed down by the nurse due to a couple of factors. Typically, that person would be back to work now. 5 days will be up, but our nurse and the staff member have decided to not return to the Johnson School till next week. If you look at the graphs, you will see in the bottom right graph, the weekly positives look very similar to what happened in January. Very, very similar. The totals are speak for themselves. We are approaching about 50% of the combination of staff members and students
That have ever had.
ever had.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a debate, as you know, several of you are medical professionals, you know much more about this stuff than I do. Is that good? Is it bad? The CDC is now talking about a couple of more strains the fall, but the hope is that they will be equally not serious as the current one, because that will get the population over the infectious period. We will be having activities within structures from now until the end of the school year. We are going to make 2 recommendations. Number 1, we are going to recommend wearing masks, not mandated, but recommended. And then we are going to strongly recommend that anyone who hasn't had COVID within 60 to 90 days wear a mask. Based on the recommendation, and I talked to the public health nurse about that. If somebody had COVID a month ago, they can neither get it nor receive the virus for somewhere around 90 days. But someone like me who hasn't had it, I can both get it, and then if I have it, don't know it because I'm asymptomatic, I can transmit it. So, but we're not going to mandate it. We're gonna spread people out as much as we can with the activities, but we're going to move forward. Today, I spoke to the staff enthusiastically about returning to the pre-COVID activities that we had going on everywhere. We had parents coming in, we had guests, we were going to Boston, to the Coast Guard station in Boston. So hopefully we can return to that kind of very much community involved learning, where the styles that a person learns, a student learns, can be met by the variety of the activities that we're doing. And it's time. As long as things don't turn to a stronger, more virulent strain, then, we have to, in my opinion, we have to recalculate. Right now, that's the way we're looking at it, and obviously, I would never talk to you without talking to the public health nurse and the school nurse first, and they both agree.
Mr. Pierantozzi, does that, when you say you're making recommendations for masking in general and then masking specifically for folks that haven't had COVID in the last 60 to 90 days, is that for every day or is it just for these events?
That is for, well, I have already, and put, let me start again. The recommendation for masking, for parents to consider masking children at Johnson School has been out there for about a month.
Okay.
That's not gonna change.
Yep.
Now we're talking about, if we have an indoor activity like the move-up ceremony. People are gonna be in a room, now it's a big room. But they're gonna be in a room for an hour and a half, 2 hours, max, hopefully more like an hour. And we're gonna recommend masks. Nobody's gonna mandate it if somebody, and the reason is because there are so many students who are in that post-COVID immunity period. The numbers of students and staff we have, for example, taking the pool test is dropping every week. Because as we get a couple of cases, they no longer have, we don't want them in the pool because we'll get a false reading. So that's what we're going to do. Again, no mandates, no requirements, but we're going to ask people to be thoughtful of others.
Is there a reason to ask two separate, to have two separate requests for masks? One or the other? You're recommending?
That's a really good question, Madam Chair, through you. When I talked to the public health nurse today, we talked about the natural immunity of people who have had the virus, and the standard number they're using is 90 days. The conservative number is 60. But somebody who, like me, who hasn't had it, again, we're just going to strongly recommend a mask in those, only in those indoor activities. Like when we have the ice cream outside, that's a different issue. But
And I understand that. I guess what I'm saying is that you're already recommending it.
we're just going to remind people. I mean, I go around, when I go to stores, when I go to, I went out to eat last week. I mean, mask wearing is 5–10%. So, we just want people to think about it. Again, no mandates, but be thoughtful, be careful. I'm also thinking that I want someone who does have immunity issues to be reminded to wear masks, because I don't know if this is happening to you, but I drive somewhere, I park my car and there are times when I have to walk back quite a far to get my mask, because it's not at the forefront of our thinking anymore, because you don't see people with masks on. My wife just came back from the Montana, and she wore a mask indoors, and no one else, she was in a large resort, no one else had a mask on. Luckily, she was there to horseback ride, so she was outside. I'm assuming the horses were outside. Good guess. Sorry.
I don't think so. I hope.
Yeah. So the graphs that you have in your packet are 1 week newer than the one, the graphs that I have in the hard copy packet on the table are 1 week newer than the ones I sent you on Thursday, obviously. And last week, there were no positives in the pool. But again, remember that pool was shrinking.
It's 2 active cases in school, 1 student, 1 staff.
We have I'm gonna clarify.
Yes.
There's one student who is in the quarantine period.
Yeah.
And there's one staff member who the nurse has extended the quarantine period. But when you said in school, I wanted to make sure nobody thought they were actually here.
No.
I knew you know, yeah. So no additional recommendations for tightening up on masks or behaviors. For example, we will have a concert, but it will be outdoors.
Yep.
We will have a couple of indoor activities, and they're the ones that we're just gonna put it in the newsletter. We're not gonna make a big deal about it. Or maybe if the principal decides, if the numbers change, we may send an email. We have a couple of weeks to go. I heard today that the booster will be available for all students prior to the beginning of school in September. If it's not available now, obviously, the school committee will have a decision to make about whether or not that would be a mandate or a request, a recommendation, or the school committee could stay moot on the issue. So we'll talk about that down the road. It's much too early to talk about September.
And would that be a DESI directive? That we're requiring?
That's why I think it's premature to talk. That's a really good question. I don't think so. It doesn't feel like the feds, CDC are gonna mandate much anymore. They're gonna make statements and they're gonna warn people and although there are school districts, as you probably know, that have returned to mask mandates, but they tend to, I've been looking at them online, they tend to be urbans. Providence went back to mask yesterday, I believe.
Which one?
Providence, Rhode Island,
Providence, Brookline did.
and Brookline, yeah. And Boston never has removed the mandate. So, but as we get closer, we'll talk about it. I'll bring you the latest information that I can glean. Madam Chair, with your permission, I will defer to the principal for his report, which is in the packet labeled 6B.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. Happy to share some information about the ongoings at the Johnson School. First, we had our Art, Nature, and Nahant exhibit on Saturday, May 14th. Several students did a really nice job singing, playing ukulele, reciting poetry out on East Point under the direction of Jim Walsh's program, and it was well received, and students also shared their science exhibits. I want to let you know that we've also had the Gettysburg Address recitation here at the school with some outside judges. We had some volunteer judges who came, and we had several students who competed for the honor to recite the Gettysburg Address at the Memorial Day Parade and recognition ceremony. And this year, Fiona Flevy will be the one to provide that recitation and also to lead the parade. So that's two honors that you'll have on that day. Her understudy will be Mason Lane in the event that something doesn't go well for Fiona prior to the event. This Friday, we have an early release day. The sixth graders will be visiting the Swampscott Middle School for their practice about what it looks like inside that building and how that facility operates. And then after dismissal, we'll be having a couple of different workshops from outside vendors. We'll have an iReady workshop. This is to help us get a little more information about how we can use iReady to create distinct learning plans for students. And also we'll have a presentation from Open Architects. They are contracting with us to provide a dashboard where we can see IXL, iReady, MCAS if it's the right year, and their reading scores all in one area, and then also see trends. So currently, teachers are recording the reading levels on a spreadsheet that I made in Google, and it's just numbers on a page. And then if you want to find the other information, you have to go to other places. Open Architects recently did a free offer through DESE where they were showing dashboards that related to us about our MCAS and other data about students. So now we're working with them to expand that option. And then on Thursday, May 12th, we had the Climate Change Challenge, very successful, students sharing with each other about their work in a nice event behind the school where students shared science projects with younger students. And I want to thank NEF for sponsoring that program. It was also nicely covered in the item. I had a chance to see that page article. A couple of things we're working on around the facility. One is outdoor Wi-Fi. We're exploring the cost of having a Wi-Fi transmitter put on the roof. And that would allow us to use Chromebooks behind the school. That would be helpful during summer enrichment programs, science programs. Chromebooks have cameras on them, whereas students could capture a picture of a plant and write a poem about it. And I think it's nice to be able to connect in that area. And then also I want to recognize the preschool. They've really used the outdoor learning spaces nicely in a post-COVID fashion. We have these large plastic carpets that we put out. They're not bumpy, they're just smooth like a mat. And they're lightweight, and preschool has been doing centers work out there. And so it's a nice, it's just a nice place to learn. As some upcoming dates for you, as I mentioned, the 6th grade is going to the middle school this Friday. We have the Memorial Day Parade on Monday. 6th graders will be participating in that. We have a choral concert, as the superintendent mentioned, field day, and 6th grade graduation. I did get out the invitations to that today, so folks can start signing up for seats. And school committee members also can let me know if they're able to attend. It'd be much appreciated, so we can consider that in our planning, as those seats are highly coveted. So, and that concludes my report. I believe the school improvement plan is in a separate section of the agenda.
Let's, sorry that I haven't read this, but is it more protocol, like more important for school committee members to all make the time to come? Or for those of us that don't have 6th graders as parents, would you want us to give up our seats so that somebody else would come that doesn't have a 6th grader?
There's seating for everyone, and so I just ask you to just review your schedule if you, Madam Chair. Just ask you to review your schedule and see what you're available for. It's wonderful to have the representation if it's able.
Okay. Moving on to the facilities report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will go as quickly as I can, but there's lots of things to talk about. First of all, there is a roof bid for the cafeteria and the gym on the street. I have written an RFP, a request for proposals and bids. It's posted on the state site, and you may have noticed it posted on our Johnson Elementary School website.
Is that for the silicone?
It's both. It's for shingling the cafeteria roof and the silicone covering on the gym roof. However, I did write the proposal and give roofers the ability to make a different kind of proposal, which in the details of the RFP, I said must be approved, obviously. Okay. 2 roofers have been contacted because they worked for us in the past, and they both inspected the roofs, so we know we're going to get some interest. I have also contacted the building inspector, Mr. Wilson, and I have asked him to come over and take a look. He did ask me about that silicone covering, and I answered his questions, but I'm still waiting for his return his information. We are still waiting for the fans to be installed in the cafetorium, and we are still waiting for some materials to come to instant alarm. So those 2 projects will be done under the current year's funding, even if it extends into July, will encumber the funds, the current year's funds to spend next year. I also have a couple of other things with a liberal interpretation of facilities. The school lunch RFP is also on the street. We have hand delivered that to 4 providers near us, and we don't believe that we're going to get much interest in that because we never have. But I'm going to try to get a contract in place for several years down the road. And I want to mention town meeting. The world's record was set for rapidity. And I want to mention it because I think it's a statement of trust by the voters and by the townspeople in the town management, in the school district management under the Board of Selectmen and under your leadership. I've been going to town meetings for a long time. I don't even want to put a number on it. More than a quarter of a century, that's for sure. And it is the first time I have ever experienced the omnibus bill, which is what it's called here, but the operating cost for a town and the school district ever being passed without holds, comments, questions, complaints. It just went boom and it was over. So I think there's a level of trust in the residents, in the leadership that you provide, and the town administrator, the treasurer, the town accountant, and of course the Board of Selectmen. And I think that's a great thing. Most of the time, all those concerns, questions, and arguments at town meeting don't end up in positively, you know. So that's really, it was remarkable. And I think Mr. Andrews, this is your baby. Do you want to mention what happened with Heritage Trail?
I do, you know, and I thank you for passing it over to me, Superintendent Parentozzi, through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I was just want to say thank you to Ms. Anderson for supporting that at town meeting. This is the one time I really got my principal's report out early, and I did not include it on there because I really thought it was a done deal. And I'm really excited to help work with the town as we develop a safe and useful way to get to school and way to get to other places in Nahant. So again, I appreciate the support. It means a lot to me as a principal that passed, and I'm looking forward to working on it and just making the campus a better place for the kids.
And there was other support besides me.
Sure.
The lead-in was nice. There was a gentleman from the finance committee, people got up and said, we don't recommend it. Immediately, a community preservation person got up and said, that's a bad decision. And so it was a nice roundup. So I got up and I said, you know, as a mom, as a school committee member, and as, you know, somebody who does this work in a different part of my life, this is all around a good idea. And we should be doing this. And that was that, but then there was more support. And the opposition really sounded on. They didn't like you said here, they didn't like that the CPC piece was vague, right? But that doesn't mean, my argument was, that doesn't mean you don't take some planning time, right? So it felt like a no-brainer, and I was glad to see a bunch of support for that. And I also felt a lot of support in the room for the schools, you know, and then I think it mattered that you did work on this, which means that you've got skin in the game for folks. So it's good. It's good stuff.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, Mr. Andrews.
My pleasure. Exciting to have things like that to think about when you're biking to work or trying to do something else. Like, oh, what the hell that part is going to go next. So,
Yeah.
Great.
Madam Chair, that's the superintendent's report. Madam Chair, thank you very much. I will go through these 3 items very quickly, if you will. Number 1, summer day camp. We're ready. We have staff with appointment letters. Registration will go out. Registration has gone out, and we have enough students to run it, but we can always take more, and that's important.
Yeah.
And that will be in the newsletter, that if anyone else wants to have their children have a healthy, safe place, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, from 11:30 to 5:30 for 4 weeks, starting on July 18th and going to August 12th, and then all day Friday, 8:30 to 5:30, and there'll be lots of things to do. We're planning on off-campus activities, all kinds of really cool stuff. The summer academic enrichment program, once again, we have a couple of slots open. We're over 30,
Well over 30.
well over 30 for that. Just as a reminder, that's 11:30, excuse me, 8:30 to 11:30, Monday through Thursday, July 18th to August 12th, and that is free of charge. That's an academic support program that there's no cost, and we do have some slots. And the new one that we have now a staff, I'm not choosing the staff because I don't know how many we need yet. That registration will be going out this week to parents and guardians. That is August 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, and 26th from 8:30 to 12:30. And it's called the 2022 Summer Acceleration Learning Academy. And it's really a jump start on the next school year. This year, it's a little different than the last time we ran it. This year, grades 1, 2, and 3 are focused on ELA, reading, writing, speaking, listening. And grades 4 through 5 is focused on math, are focused on math, excuse me. That doesn't mean they won't have any math or they won't have any ELA, but that's what the focus is. This is federal money through the state, and they put forward a outline that you have to follow.
And what are the hours of that?
That is 8:30 to 12:30, 5 days, August 22nd to 26th, free of charge.
And last time you talked about enrollment for the children who are going into sixth grade. If there was availability, there was space, would that also going to be considered for those students?
Absolutely. I mean, the scenario would be, we have 24 applicants from 1st through 5th. And we have 3 teachers and we have space. We're gonna take the 6th graders. I really doubt whether the state or the feds are gonna complain. Why would they complain? They're educating children. If they do, we'll deal with it.
Yeah, and I think you have the support of different, scores or whatnot to support that decision.
Absolutely. So when Mr. Andrews does his technology magic on the registration, somehow he will indicate to the parents of 6th grade students that we can't guarantee a slot, we don't know, but if we can, we will.
That's really, thank you.
And that's for the 1 week acceleration camp.
That's correct.
Right.
And that covers the summer.
Thank you.
Back to school.
Lord, let's enjoy the summer. So moving on to new business and the school improvement plan for 2022 and 2023.
Madam Chair, I defer to the principal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy to present on this. We had a wonderful committee that met several times over the school year. We had Ms. Kobus as the teacher representative. We had Kate Smethurst as the parent representative, and Nancy Antrim, a community representative. All that's listed on page 2 of your school improvement plan. And I want to thank them for their time. They're really generous with their time, all experts in either raising kids or teaching kids. And so it was really great to have that and have an outside look at how we can improve at the school. The way I set up the improvement plan was to do a light yellow highlight on significant changes, so that you can see that we write these every year. But a lot of the goals are useful to look at over a course of a number of years, and they aren't completed in 1 year. It's something that we want to focus on for a number of years. And so we are still continuing to focus on them because they're new. But the newest of the new are in the light yellow. And so on page 3, you'll see that we have our goals very similar. These are kind of like guiding messages on each of these actions. And goal 1, we did make, oh, the photocopy didn't come through.
Yeah,
Okay.
we don't have a color copy, or
All
I
right.
apologize. Now, your electronic
I'm sorry.
copies are in color.
Yeah,
But
Well,
just if you could
I
point
could,
out the ones
I'd be
that are
happy
shaded.
to. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So the goals are all the same, except for in goal 1, we had the second sentence mentions a special focus in the areas of social studies and music. Which you might be surprised to hear about, because so often we're talking about ELA and math. That's still our focus areas with iReady, IXL, and learning and teaching. But I felt this year we should really commit to a music curriculum so that our music teacher has something to really start off with that's strong. And also that in social studies, we haven't had new materials, especially in the upper grades. The textbooks are quite old, and whether it's an online program or a hard copy program, we are looking at we want to look at what's out there in social studies that can really support the students. Okay, and I'm just gonna go through the some of the changes, some of the high points, and feel free to stop me as we go through, if that's okay with you, Madam Chair. Page 4 has no changes in it. These are our values and our code of conduct, as well as our mission. And these are shared by students every morning on the announcements. And it's a great reference for us to go back to when we have an issue at the school or something we want to talk about. On page 5, I have that goal again with the music and mentioning social studies and music. The end of the goal ends with in iReady, because in the past we've used MCAS to measure our growth. But that doesn't start until grade 3. And so by using iReady, they actually provide a growth score for students. And so we're going to really be looking at using iReady. We'll use MCAS as well, but iReady provides a year-long measure for everybody in grades 1 through 6. So new parts here. Halfway down is a large activity that talks about staff will develop and implement place-based and cross-curricular learning activities. We want to make sure that our new staff members are familiar with this content that we have and how to connect with the Historic Society, Northeastern University, places like that. So we're making sure that our new staff members are familiar with our place-based approach to learning. Below that, we have a social studies textbook selection committee. And then in the last box, we're talking about having professional development around iReady, and that's what we're doing this Friday, in fact. Learning how we can use data to create individualized education plans for students.
Mr. Andrews, is that the one where it says create a data dashboard where teachers can access a variety of data sources? That one?
That is what it is, but it's on number 5 at the bottom of the page, bottom left, all PD sessions.
Oh, okay. So,
But we are doing that as well, what you just said. Where was that from?
that's the next page. which
Oh,
is-
okay. Oh, great, yeah, I put that one under, I think, under technology. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so on page 6, we're talking about how we're using technology in the school, and this is a nice, every year I think we have a plan around this because it's always evolving. And so this year, we have several things here where Chromebooks are continuing to be used in the classroom. The second bullet talks about IXL. We talked about math, and just today at our staff meeting, we talked about how we can use IXL as a diagnostic 3 times a year briefly to measure growth also. So it's another way to measure student growth where teachers don't have to do the reporting, that the students can do it on a Chromebook, and then we can actually pinpoint skills that students need to improve on. And that's the new learning that we have around IXL. And then that fourth one you mentioned is creating that dashboard. That's again going to be part of our PD this Friday. so that we can really see what trends students have in their learning. And finally, a similar item on page 6, talking about looking at student data, including the growth data. And this is again talking about how students are improving and how they're growing. And if we see a student that's stagnating, that's where you really want to intervene and see if there's something else going on. And so that's
Mr.
some.
Andrews, I have a question.
Please.
2 questions. Is when you have the professional development for the teachers and, you know, they need additional support after
Mhm.
the initial session, is there a mechanism in place for them to receive that?
Yeah, it's great. IXL has, it has nationwide webinars that you can go onto for free, that you can join multiple times a year. They also, I mean, I don't know if I find that help within the software is a lot better than it used to be 10 years ago. And I use it now to learn how to use things. I even had, it links to videos in YouTube that talks, it's made by the company and the videos are right there. How do I highlight skills for my students in 5th grade? Boom, and it's just, and it starts in the software and brings you to YouTube. And so it's great, it's like mini webinars. And so one teacher said, we need more training on this. I think that's great. I think one way I want to do it is really let everyone know, okay, we're gonna spend 45 minutes in it. Here's the different areas I want you to go to. If you're proficient in the basic, can you get into the second level where you're really making these learning plans for kids?
Oh, great.
And so absolutely, there's lots of resources, and IXL folks are often emailing me, asking me how it's going. I actually even have a dashboard that tells me teacher engagement levels. And so that's pretty neat too, is I can
That's
learn
great. Yeah.
how the teachers are using it, and I can see the kids and I can see the teachers.
That was gonna be my second question
Yeah.
is, for teachers in evaluating this data, similarly, having questions on what the data means and how they're to support their student, you know, with the information that they have, is there PD surrounding that or resources for them to, you know, have that support for their students?
Right, yes, so iReady, the focus for iReady for Friday, the workshop we have, which is a paid workshop, it's a live webinar. They're gonna just work with our school, and they're gonna help us use the iReady scores, which aren't just numbers. For teachers, they drill down into standards, and then how they can get resources to make a skill plan
Great.
for the kids.
Thank you so much.
Is
Sure.
there a time that you crosswalk that with similarly tested standards on the MCAS? So you can see where iReady and MCAS might be aligned or not aligned?
Yeah, I would-
Responses.
So I think that would be something that we would do. We're talking about doing the IXL diagnostic in the middle of each trimester. So that we have start of the year iReady, middle of the trimester IXL diagnostic. So that's probably when we would probably use the MCAS scores that come out in October with the IXL diagnostic at that time.
Okay.
Because those two are about the same time of year. But that would be an October activity.
Yeah.
And this fall will probably be the first time we're really able to put those numbers side by side.
Yeah.
You know, when I did it for the first time, we used to have to use highlighters and paper, and we'd be,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, now it's like the computer does it for you and you're looking more at results. Looking on to goal 3, these haven't changed. These are academic focus on, and this is where we're trying to integrate the marine science, ocean literacy, maritime history, things that can make the school unique and interesting. We've been doing this over years. It's been less of a focus during COVID, but I really want to get back into this. And you know, now what we've done is have each teacher take an outreach position. So one teacher is the outreach for Historic Society, one is for North Shore, the Northeastern University, Marine Science. And so we can keep all these connections alive and healthy, and also get the new teachers to know about them. Page 8, this talks about making all community members feel safe, welcome, and included. It seems now more than ever a very important topic. The 4th item down is new. Students take part in a project about an inspirational, creative individual that comes from a background or gender that has been overlooked in the past. So, this is one that we're trying to figure out, how do we explain what we're trying to get to here? We want to make sure that we are doing projects and learning about people from different backgrounds. And so this is something that the teacher is going to talk about and really help the students, select where they want to go with it. And what they want to think about in terms of somebody that they maybe have not heard about before, or from a background that's they hadn't learned about before. Then let's see, the next one down was already there. Identify and install images and symbols that the school can use to send messages with inclusivity. So currently, we mostly have images on doors that mention it's a safe space. We don't have a lot of big school-wide things. We do have some flags that I'd like to share with the school community that we haven't, we've had them out, but not as a permanent installation. So, it's work we're doing, but we want to continue to do. The third one, the second one from the bottom is new. Invite families to educate school members about cultures, conditions, and interests through Spirit Days. So this is something like you would consider, okay, maybe they have Cambodian Pride Day and you have someone from a family from Cambodia that wants to share about that. Or maybe someone has a condition that they want the school to celebrate or recognize, but they don't want to be the poster child of it. So maybe you want to have Autism Awareness Day. Doesn't mean that Kevin Andrews is the poster child for autism, but maybe the whole school is doing whatever it is that organization does to recognize autism and have a small lesson about it. So we're asking school members, parents to reach out to us, and I'll reach out to parents and say, hey, is there something that you want to celebrate? Let us know. Okay,
Mr. Andrews,
Yeah.
couple comments on those four.
okay,
First, it's always hard and interesting to navigate conversations to get this type of inclusivity.
Yeah.
That's so important for our kids to learn, and in terms of reaching a reduction in bullying and other kinds of good behaviors. And so hats off to you for doing it. I think one recommendation that I want to make is just making sure that we're putting things together in the most celebratory way. So one thing that jumped out that I would make a change with is, while I love that you included LGBTQ families, of which there are a handful here at the Johnson School, I think having it connected to things that are hard, right?
sure.
Being gay, having a blood disorder.
Right. I understand what you're saying.
As
Yeah.
a gay mom, I might have a reaction to that.
Sure.
But I totally get the spirit of where you're trying to go, and I think it's great. But I think as I look up into taking part in a project about an inspirational person that's been overlooked, I think there's a natural place to maybe list out some things like the Black and Latinx communities, LGBTQ communities, et cetera, which I think would be appropriate. And even, you could include it in some examples under invite families to educate, which is something I know, some of us, would like to do. So you already have the infrastructure there to include it. I would just be, I would think about what you're putting with what. So
Sure.
It doesn't look like the school is giving an inadvertent message of something more deficit based.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I also love the idea that you're thinking of including flags as a more permanent installation.
Yeah.
I know for you to have a narrative, even though you can't control what everybody does, for you to have a narrative about inclusivity, a strong anti-bullying stance, and then put up a pride flag is hugely meaningful. Not just for gay kids, but for other kids that might get bullied for other reasons, because it's such a known symbol, right? So my daughter feels that way. She sees the flag, even though she's not a gay kid. So I think that's a great thing, and I'm glad you're thinking about putting that up permanently.
Yeah, I guess you're right. It shows, actually through you, it shows a caring for everybody in the community.
Yeah, right. And it says A, we're gonna celebrate you, and B, we're not gonna tolerate people who don't.
Right,
Right. So,
great.
which I think is, in light of the events today, it's just so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there is definitely, Madam Chair, through you, a baseline expectation at the Johnson School of respect, dignity, and acceptance that is quite remarkable. And One thing that's not on the plan, because it's really in our hands as administrators, is continuing our relationship with the Massachusetts Partnerships for Youth, who are outstanding in their presentations, and they're providing us with professionals in the field of social emotional health for all students, and that will continue. We had them twice this year.
We did.
And, you know, we typically have them 5 times a year. Before COVID, we have to kick that up a notch, as famous chef once said. Bam. And that's really good, because on a typical day, what we did in the past with them is they made a presentation to our older students, to the faculty after school, and then to the parents and guardians of the community in the evening. So it's very effective. So we'll get that going again.
The final goal 5, on page 9. The last section is new, create opportunities to support mental health wellness. Not that we're not doing that already, but we wanted to put it down as something that we really want to think about and put front of mind. This is execute a program on how to discuss emotions and feelings, how to calm oneself when overwhelmed, and how to develop skills for self-regulation.
It's great.
So just thinking about the challenges that students have had in the last couple of years, and that how, you know, how much we haven't focused on mental health as a society maybe, and just that we want to recognize that this could be a growth area for everybody. And so I've been in communication with Kat Sullivan and our classroom teachers who are the front lines for these things. And we'll be working on that in the coming school year.
And is this kind of voted and in play by the improvement plan committee? Is it done?
So the way I understand it works is that the school council has approved the plan, and then I give it to you to put on file. I'm happy to take your information and things that you'd like to see updated, and happy to update the document and use it as a live document.
Yeah, I think that probably needs a little explanation. In a district with multiple schools, the school councils have the ultimate authority, not school committee, which is when we first started doing school improvement plans, the school committee voted on it all. There was, presentations at the school committee, and then the Board of Education said, look, you're eating up, like a place like Boston, you're eating up half of the school committee's time, and we believe in local autonomy. In our school district, there's a similarity and a repetitiveness of the school improvement plan and the district improvement plan, which is on hold based on a vote you took earlier. My recommendation would be for the chair, Madam Chair, if you so chose, to accept the plan and support it by vote, if you so chose, or you can do nothing. Totally up to you.
We'd love to accept the plan.
And then it's on your docket, it's on the table, you've seen it. Amendments can be, you can even say we accept the plan as written with these school council looking at amending certain portions based on the discussion we had here.
I'd be comfortable with that as long as it included, if the board included the part about we'll be taking the discussion about inclusivity and making, changes as needed and necessary.
I think that was a great insight. That's why these meetings are so helpful.
The only other question that I had about the action plan in regards to identifying students that need extra emotional or mental health is there something for the teachers and the staff? Only because I can only imagine the difficulty just having to sit on these to understand even just to look like a tiny bit of what you all have gone through this past couple of years. And so, I'm grateful for programs that I have at work through Massachusetts, and I'm wondering if there is something that can be provided, a resource to staff for that same
Yeah,
concept.
I want to say that and I thank you for bringing it up. MIAA is our insurance provider, and they have excellent programs. Our council, I'm sure, would be able to put together things, but I definitely want to put out, I'm glad you mentioned it because it makes me think about this program that we haven't had flyers out about that just say, you're having a hard time, or you want to talk to somebody in our town subscribes to this insurance, and we can use it and access it. So that's one right
Yeah,
there.
and I think important enough to put in here that we're acknowledging that,
Good.
that we want teachers to have that support as well. That's.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'll bring that recommendation back to the school council.
Yeah,
as well.
MPY has dozens
That's
of
great.
webinars
I
on
can see here.
self-help, taking care of yourself. I belong to a mailing list, a national mailing list, and every time I get a program, I send it out to all staff. The really good thing about the way it's working now that we've learned to do with COVID is that when MPY puts on it, there's really 3 different levels that the Massachusetts Partnerships for Youth are now addressing. One is in services. So for example, on one of our PD days, they could send a staff member, or we could do it electronically, and we're all doing the same thing. And we learn from it. The second leg of their stool is they do conferences. I was just at one 2 Fridays ago on mental health, and people can sign up for it and attend. And part of our membership fee is that there's no charge for any of this. The third one that's really unique that MPY developed about 2.5 months into COVID is a Zoom presentation at a certain time. Typically they're 1 or 2 hours. They can be isolated, or they're series that they offer. And one of the things that I brought to the table to our executive director is, the limiting factor is you put this on at 10 a.m. to 12 noon on a Tuesday, and that's my, I'm a high school teacher, that's my physics class, or blah, blah, blah. So what we designed was, and it's in place to this day, when a Zoom presentation is made and you register for it, you have up to 72 hours from the time the presentation ends to then go online, because you have the link, because that's part of the registration, and watch it. And embedded in the presentation are 6 codes that you have to know when you sign up for the PDs. And they're not given it once. You actually have to go through and watch the whole thing, whether it's live or whether it's canned. And that has been like releasing to staff members. You mean I can sign up for this and I can do it on Saturday morning? Yeah. And we're talking about 50,000 presentations are being viewed a year now by this organization. So it's really amazing. And before COVID, we didn't do anything that wasn't live, nothing. And the funniest thing is, me in technology, I'm honest about it. Between the executive director and me, I don't think we even knew what Zoom was. And now we're doing literally hundreds of them. So, and a lot of that is about care. Like the SEL, social emotional learning, students, parents, guardians, families, and obviously caregivers and teachers. So it's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Andrews?
So please.
So in terms of identifying the students that require the support, are there concerns that we don't have the staff or the time to address the emotional concerns of all of the students? Like, is there a concern that there may be not enough time to address the students in terms of
how much they might need, frequency, or has that really not been an issue?
I
That you're
don't
aware of.
see, I don't
Okay.
see that, you know, my door's always open, kids walk in, so I'm always available, for that, and then we have Ms. Sullivan 3 days. I do think that we have the staffing we need to
Okay.
cover the needs. Yeah, and it would be often time I'll have a student in my office for 40 minutes because he doesn't want to go to class and do his work in my office. So and then we, talk about it and I send him on his way, so.
Yeah.
Um,
Benefit of the small schools.
yeah, it is,
Yeah,
and I
just-
don't feel like I can say, oh geez, can someone else get him? I don't know who's gonna do it. I have to
Yeah.
hand it off to the nurse, who would be great at it too. I mean, Ms.
Right.
Lucio is my backup for mental health issues.
Right,
But
okay.
I haven't had to go to it very often.
I think some of, I think some of it is, I'm sure there's no way any school could fulfill all the mental health needs of its students, period, nor is that its mandate. I think what I see does the school have enough diversity in ways and is really transparent in getting those ways accessible so that they can happen either inside the school has control over, like with the mental health support that you have in the school, or with things like employee assistance plans and making them more transparent and helping people that may don't even know what that means. I think I was 40 when I understood what a EAP meant in terms of the acronym. So, like just looking at that level of accessibility. But I mean, it's a good question. Like if there is a line of support that the school doesn't have a lead on, then we want to target that, right? But I think, I talked to a colleague at the Department of Ed the other day, and she said informally, she's like, we know the kids are not all right, none of them are all right, after what we call them. So it was interesting that the Department of Ed knew the magnitude of what educators are facing every day with kids not being all right. And so that means something in and of itself, just about the tsunami of need that's out there.
Madam Chair, one of the, if I may, one of the best things about our school, in my opinion, is that we live by the axiom, if something isn't everybody's responsibility, it can become nobody's responsibility. I counsel kids on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I walk into the classroom and the teacher will say, Johnny's having a tough day. We were talking about executive functioning. I was working with 2 students last week on calming down and teaching techniques that I used to use when I was a teacher. And it's something that as the school committee in this particular district, you should be very proud of. I don't believe I've ever heard somebody say to me, well, I'm not doing that, it's not my job,
That's great.
since the day I got here. And I can assure you that that's not the way it is everywhere.
I personally have witnessed your support and was very proud of that. Before I joined the school, just volunteering in the school, and I thought to myself, like, what a great guy. So
You must be talking about it.
no, I was yeah.
Thank you.
I was
Well, that's-
I was very impressed.
It really is the way it works. It's the same philosophies, I believe, with schools and municipal functioning. Everybody's strong, or everyone's getting weaker if you're fighting. It's the same thing here. I'm sure Mr. Angelos will agree with me that if something's happening or somebody needs help, we get it. And if we can't get it here, we get it somewhere else.
It's true.
Thank you. This is wonderful. So moving on to the next item, can I please have a motion to discuss the line item transfer authorization?
I'll make a motion to discuss the line item transfer authorization. Second. I'll second that.
Thank you.
Oh, discussion first,
Yeah.
prior to the vote, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Okay, so in your packet labeled 8B you have what I brought to your attention a couple of times. This is not about a lack of funds. This is about the way the town meeting appropriates the funds on 3 line items. All of our money, transportation, and Essex. So unfortunately, this year, because of a couple of unplanned and unknown transportation expenses when we built the budget, our transportation budget is insufficient to pay all of our sped transportation costs to the end of the year. So there's 2 ways that we can do this, because it is approved that way at town meeting. One is that I could have had this money in front of town meeting on Saturday to be voted on by the individuals at town meeting. The problem with that was getting it to town meeting is such a long process that I had to know the number weeks ago, and I didn't know. The second way of doing it is the way I'm going to ask you to do. That you approve this transfer, I bring it to the town administrator, who then puts it before the finance committee and the board of selectmen, and they approve it. Once again, it's not about we don't have the money, it's in the wrong place, and we got to get it to the right place. We have already decided, the town administrator and the town accountant and I, that for fiscal '24, we're not gonna do it. They're gonna put forward one number for everything, so this doesn't have to happen anymore. Because they have the same issue with the Essex funds, they can only take it out of free cash, and then you gotta go for permission to do it, so. With your permission, Madam Chair, I recommend that the school, and then there can be more discussion or questions, but I'm gonna recommend that the school committee approve the transfer of $32,995.50 from the line item, and there's a whole bunch of numbers. It's the special education tuition to private schools line, and transfer $32,995.50 to the special education transportation line item.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the line item transfer from special education schools to special education transportation for the amount of $32,995.50.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, and Madam Chair, I will sign this document, and the reasons I've signed it, first, I'm waiting for your action. And I will forward it to the municipal authorities.
So moving on to other community business. Michelle and I were talking about the August school committee meeting. Both of us will be out on vacation on the 23rd of August. So I think I'm going to do it. I would. I have no issue logging in via Zoom.
It's just, I haven't. No meeting.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree with that. I agree with that
So I'm
policy.
staying willing.
I agree with that policy. I support that.
Yes, I love your honesty. I practice that.
So I am wondering if we should change the date, if that is possible for the
Do we have, is that the only meeting in August?
Yes. So it'd be an amendment to the school committee calendar.
Have to, you know, put that on the agenda for the next. Or can we do that
Oh,
today?
I don't know, Mr. President. Can we vote on that today, or does it have to be on the agenda to be voted on? Today?
No, I recommend for conservatism that I put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
So we'll put it on the agenda.
technically, a school committee or any public body is never supposed to take a vote on something
Yeah.
that's not on the agenda. If it
Yeah.
alters the function of their responsibilities. There could be an argument that it's your meeting and it probably doesn't affect anybody else, but the ethics commission may look at it a different way. There's no rush.
So June
Like-
14th, we should talk about that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Is there any other community business that anyone wants to?
You know, I didn't know the appropriate time to bring this up, so sorry if it's not the appropriate time, but it's just been kind of weighing on me this afternoon, and I wanted to ask, Mr. Quincy, Mr. Andrews, if you could just review the safety protocols in place. You know, obviously, what happened in Texas is tragic, and just, you know, you always want to think that it's not gonna happen to you, so I think I'd be remiss to ask. I mean, just as a member of the, you know, school community who comes to I imagine that the biggest safety precaution that we have is the locked doors. And that people can't just have open access to the schools, and I don't know the logistics of what happened in Texas, and if they have a different situation. But I guess my question is, if somebody comes to the door, if I come to the door and I ring the bell, I get let in. You know, the staff know me, they know I'm a parent. What would happen if somebody were to come and you didn't know their business? Is there a way to communicate and not let them in? I mean, I'm just struggling. I'm
Sure.
struggling.
I think it's a common sense that we all share the dread when something like this happens. One of my first acts as superintendent in 2016 was to spend, I think it was $22,800 on the double entry
Yeah.
system that we now have at the main door. Before that was put in, you got buzzed in and you could walk in. Our procedure is that if the doors are always locked, the custodian and Mr. Andrews and I are always checking the doors. So they are open at entry. 2 places only. Door 4 and 12, Flash Road and the one that near the early childhood room. Immediately after the bell rings, they get locked. If someone came to either Flash Road or to the other entry, door 12, near the early childhood, and they buzz, we can see them, and they are told to go to the main entrance, because that's where we have the double entry. Frankly, we don't get a lot of people coming here who we don't know, but it's possible, obviously. We would not let a high school student that was here 5 years ago come in if they were carrying anything, or if, you know, and I have to say Sherry is really, really good at having instincts as a, you know, as a mother and as somebody who's been in that position for a long time. We have asked and will continue to ask for the police officers to walk through the building on a regular basis. They used to come through 2-3 times a day, got out of the habit because of COVID. And I've been asking Chief Furlong to reinstate that, which now I believe will give it a little more attention. We always have police officers on the property though. I'm sure you've driven by and seen they do some of their paperwork here rather than pulling somewhere else. So there is a good positive presence.
I would just like to add that you in the school, and I went to safety presentations that you provided in the past, you know, and I know that an event like this is so scary, you know, but it is a constant that everybody has to think about all the time. And I do think that the school does a good job with the drills and, you know, and while it's fresh, you know, it's always, you never let up on security. Period. you know, and it's scary to think that this happened anywhere. But security isn't everything. It never should be. And I think that that's practice.
I'm glad you feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time when there would be doors in this building, not during my superintendentcy, but there would be doors that were propped open with locks and things. People who had been here many, many years had a habit of doing that, and that stopped. You know, I come from an urban background. Where you have to be careful. I mean, those of us who have been in charge of urban educational environments, we've seen all kinds of things.
Michelle, I really appreciate your comments, the absolutism that we have to have around safety. These, it should have been all the time, like that should never have happened, you know, and I've been in the same situation. I have never seen anything like this, you know, I hope to God I never will. I have seen some pretty awful things, and so, that happen in the school environment. And it's so important to dive back in and for school committee to ask these questions and for teachers to ask these questions. I will say in my own experience, when I first moved to Nahant 2 years ago, I came to the school twice and was not allowed in. Not just because of COVID, she didn't recognize and I couldn't even get in the first door. So, you know.
You have no business here.
Right, well, she was very nice,
Yes.
but I had to kind of do name, age, and serial number of child, you know, for there to be a connection to even come in and talk to her in the front window, right? And then COVID kept me out of anything further, and that was, you know, that was just recent. So I think, you know, it's clear that it's not just in this room, that it's not just lip service to safety, but there's safety happening, and I appreciate the renewed conversation with the police chief. I think that's great. Thank you for bringing it up. And Michelle.
I did have one other thing for other committee business, and I don't know if it's appropriate to bring it up for next agenda as new business, but I think along the topics of social emotional learning is I have participated in the past before COVID in a program in which it involves, it's called Understanding Our Differences, and it involves different programs to teach teachers, parents, other kids, community members about differences in the community. So it's mainly focused on like learning disabilities, medical disabilities, like so for different grades, it goes from grades 3 to 5, and that's a focus group. And there's like the physical disabilities, that makes the invisible disabilities, like learning disabilities or, you know, medical conditions. And I really believe it's a great program that will support community involvement and support social emotional learning and support the kids being buddies to each other. And I started off pre-COVID and doing this with Cheryl, who was wonderful, and getting this moving. But and I know I've solicited some of the members on this board to help me out with some of the things. But I would love the opportunity to speak more about it and have a presentation about how, and if the school, you know, if this is a school committee agenda item, to get to integrate this back into the school. I'd love to have that opportunity.
That's great.
Great.
Yeah. Do we need to make a motion to add that? Okay. Great, thank you. Two lingering thoughts, if I can have them, on the improvement plan agenda item and on the safety item, if I can say them quickly, is that all right? Great. On the school. Okay.
My boss,
I'm just
don't
like,
let me-
no, I know we're at the, you know, we're at the end, and I'm not trying to add business here, but I wish I had included one other thought on the school improvement plan, which is, I think in the articulation of more specificity of different groups that we want to make sure that we're celebratory of. I think specifically naming racial diversity in these times is important to bring that up before. I think that is in the same place where I suggested we put the LGBT community. I think also talking about racial diversity, possibly intersectionality, is important for two reasons. One is, again, it's in coherence with our values as a school community because diversity is named, as is inclusion. But also, like, it is a good bully reducer when you put that in at the outset in elementary school. And it also is, I think that there's a growing narrative that I like, where you're also saying that we need to educate all students for the world of tomorrow. The world of tomorrow is going to be increasingly global, especially on the coasts of our country. So in in mostly white communities, we have an obligation, not just an ethical one, to grow kids that want to be inclusive and understand about privilege, they understand about unfair privilege, as is developmentally ready. But also, like, they're going to need that to pragmatically to navigate the world that we're going into, right? That's why adults are having some struggles right now. And so hopefully our kids will have less struggles. This is an optimal place to do that work. So I think that specificity is important rather than just putting it into the basket of diversity. It also would be, as I've talked to a couple of parents of color in our community, it would be really meaningful for them, right? And they don't often know or feel they can speak up about things. So I think we need to be allies, and do that and create an environment where they feel like they can. So that's one comment. Second comment on safety is actually a question. Are we talking to students about the safety of the doors? Because I know we did in my own school system that I run, we did all of this great work, a lot of the work that you're talking about, and we didn't talk to the kids, which felt ridiculous as I look at it, in hindsight. And the students would let in their buddy, right? And we're lucky not to have an incident. And I could see that, happening in with our students, right? Particularly if it was an older and high school student. So I think talking to our students about following safety protocols and why is as important, right? Because they are key stakeholders here as well and have agency.
And that's a great point.
There's two thoughts raging through my brain, bumping into each other. One is it's crucially important to make sure the students know. And the other one is, how do we not frighten them?
Right, exactly.
We're, as a pre-K 6 school, typically our students don't go through a door without an adult. I mean, they're maybe going to the bathroom for recess, at recess, right?
No, they have a guard key.
But they're given a pass. So I think we have to do it, but B, we'll talk about how.
Yeah, maybe with Mrs.
The
Sullivan.
how.
Ms. Sullivan can help with
Yeah.
that one.
It's
And
also
it may be better to give it
Right.
a little bit of distance from this
Yeah, right.
event.
Right.
So
I would also ask, and I say this with great respect and love, because sometimes I think things are happening, and then I sit down and talk to teachers, and I realize where the holes are, right? And so
Yeah.
I think,
course.
of course, there's bathroom passes and this and that, about keeping students out of the hallways, but I would check, particularly with maybe the teachers of the older grades,
Yeah.
and make sure they agree with you, right? Because they are the ones ultimately who know. And if you have a student council, I talk to them too. Just to, and I'm gonna say something, dramatic because it's today, we're not dealing with this, but a scared kid is better than the alternative. And so I an injured or worse, right? And so I think, and Cass Sullivan, I think, is amazing. And that personal experience with my son, with her, which has been wonderfully supportive with all kinds of positive messaging that is transparent. Right? And so I bet she has, some ways of talking to different grade levels about this.
And then to add to that also, and I'm sorry if I missed this part of the meeting, but also trying to be prepared for what might come up tomorrow. I just can't
Yes,
help but want, like, these kids are gonna be talking about it and scared, and I just feel like maybe there should be a plan for that, a place for them to talk about it, or information I'm sure will be passed around. I just can't help but think that they're gonna be so worried and talking about it amongst each other.
Totally.
I mean, we are.
Yeah.
How can they not be?
I think Delaware's gonna be our office all day.
I welcome him every
Just
day.
make him an assistant.
Okay.
So, yeah, this is tough stuff, but it's.
No, you're right.
gonna happen.
I'll put together some resources tonight for folks tomorrow. I do want to let you know, we do have a rule about kids opening doors for outsiders, and they know when they get to the door and they see somebody, I always see them look the other way and they'll always ask their teacher before letting me in. And I'm trying to get into the garden through the kindergarten door, and they're like, nope, you're not coming in,
I
buddy.
love it.
Well, that's what I
Yeah.
was gonna say, is there are rules,
And that's what it is, it's just a black and white rule, you know,
you
you
know?
can't open the door for
Exactly.
someone you just,
Period.
you know.
You can test them.
You gotta talk to, you gotta talk to, find an adult, and they know that, so that's what I've seen, but I think it's a good idea to think about this and make sure that everyone understands.
Yes, and
That's the rule.
I even tried to go to the bathroom through one of the drop-off pickup doors, and I said, is it okay if I run into the bathroom? And the teacher said, you should probably go through the front. I said, you're right, I probably should go through the front. And it was great.
Yeah.
You know, like I had to be reminded as well as a parent, and as a school committee member, like, go to the right spot.
No slipping on the side for you.
Exactly. So, all right, well, thanks for what you guys are doing.
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Great
Appreciate it.
So moving on to announcements, are there any announcements? All right,
Some good news, maybe?
yeah, well, if there are no announcements, then I'll make a motion to adjourn to executive session, not to reconvene into open session. To approve the executive session movement from May 10th and conduct a strategy session in preparation and negotiations with union personnel and TA at 8:30. Anyone second?
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.